দর্শকবৃন্দ আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আপনাদেরকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি নাগরিক প্রতিক্রিয়ার একটা নতুন অনুষ্ঠানে। কয়েকটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট বিষয়ে নাগরিক টিভি আমাকে বলেছিল যে এই বিষয়টা নিয়ে আমরা যদি একটু ক্লারিফাই করি। আপনারা দর্শকবৃন্দ আপনারা জানেন যে বাংলাদেশের আমেরিকান ভিসা স্যাংশনের উপরে বাংলাদেশের বিভিন্ন এক্সপার্ট, নন এক্সপার্ট, এনিওয়ান অ্যান্ড এভরিওয়ান তারা তাদের ওয়েতে এই ভিসা স্যাংশনটা নিয়ে তারা মতামত দিচ্ছে। তাদের কারো কথায় ভুল ব্যাখ্যা, অপব্যাখ্যা, ফালতু কথাবার্তা, এ ধরনের কথাবার্তার জন্য দেশের মানুষ কনফিউজড হয়ে যাচ্ছে যে আসলে কি কাহিনী। তো নাগরিক টিভির সিইও টিটো রহমান আমাকে বলেছিল যে এই সাবজেক্টটা নিয়ে আমরা কি ইম্পর্টেন্ট কারোর সাথে কথা বলতে পারি কিনা। এ বিষয়ে আমি আমার ল ফার্মেরই একজন অ্যাটর্নি, তার নাম ফেলিশা খাদিজা, তাকে ইনভাইট করেছি আমাদের সাথে এই লটা নিয়ে একটু ব্যাখ্যা করার জন্য। এবং সাথে সাথে আমি ইনভাইট করেছি নিউ ইয়র্ক স্টেটের একজন অ্যাসেম্বলিম্যান মিস্টার এরিক স্টিভেনসন, উনি যেন আমাদের সাথে একটু জয়েন করে এই লটা সম্পর্কে একটু ব্যাখ্যা করে। পাশাপাশি আমি সেনেটর হায়রাম মনসুরাতকেও আমন্ত্রণ জানিয়েছি এই শোতে এসে আমাদের সাথে জন্য জয়েন করে এবং এটা নিয়ে আর একটু ব্যাখ্যা করে। তো আসুন আমরা সবাই পরিচিত হই আমাদের গেস্টদের সাথে আজকে। Felicia Khadija, your last name is really fantastic. In the past, I knew you. Yeah, I thought your name is the way your name was, Felicia Castaldo. I'm so happy to learn your last name. Khadija is a beautiful name, fantastic name.
Thank you. That's my Muslim name.
Wonderful. Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Alhamdulillah,
Okay.
everything.
I'm truly happy to have you. Former Assemblyman Eric Stevenson, brother, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, brother. How are you?
I'm okay. I know that you are busy. I'm so happy that you spare a little bit of time for us. And I didn't give you any long notice. In a short notice, you are just appearing.
Yeah.
Brother, I'm going to start from you since you have to go. I already shared some of the information this morning that it's related to new visa policy for the people who is obstructing free and fair election in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
In Bangladesh, since 2014 and 2018, incumbent government is obstructing free and fair election. They don't allow voter goes to the polling booth and cast their ballot. What they do, government official behind the scene at the night time, they stamp all of the ballot and shove it into the box and says this is the result. Now American government, they would like to they are preaching democracy and human rights in Bangladesh, but current government, they just don't listen what America does or European country does. So they made a new law and they described it on May 24th this year. I send it to you. Can you explain, based on your experience that you went through that article, and what you think of that visa sanction on Bangladeshi officials?
Well, first of all, it's a sad situation to hear such terrible things that's going on in such a good country with good people, and to be of Muslim faith is apparently not of Muslim actions or the actions of a believer. You know, so you're upholding a nation of Islam in disguise of a non-Muslim. And the behavior is unacceptable in Islam. Also, I'm sorry to see our Secretary of State and our government dealing with hypocrisy, because you have human rights organizations who gave reports about this, but yet they're using this as a blackmail situation to let people know you'll never leave Bangladesh, you'll never come into America if the government points you out as a wrongdoer or as a bad guy. So you're using an international visa policy as a way of punishing people. So the government is in total control. If they say you're not a good person, or this guy's a troublemaker, or this guy tries to overthrow democracy, you'll never get a visa and you'll never be coming into America or be traveling if you're alive. So I'm sorry to hear such a thing, and it's to see children and women and all being punished and some tortured and killed for selfish reasons of retaining and obtaining power. There's nothing wrong with power and government, but the problem is how you use it. If you're afraid of losing power, it's because you're not using it rightfully and fairly. And therefore, you're threatened by the people for overthrow because you're not just. And American governments, they pick and choose their battles as to who they want to favor, but apparently they know what the reports say, and they know this is not a just situation, but yet they take the side of wrong. And it's not a right thing. And I'm not happy to say that about my own country, but some of our officials take wrong sides on different situations and positions. So all I can say is Muslims need to pray that this situation gets resolved. That policy needs to be recalled. We should write our Congress members and our U.S. senators and ask them that this policy be recalled for unjust reasons. And it was instituted for unjust reasons to protect a government that the United States wants to favor. But at the same time, the reports need to be sent to Congress. The human rights reports need to be sent, and it needs to be recalled. It's simple. All of a sudden, how did this policy, a new policy, arise and be imposed on Bangladesh? You know, apparently the government of Bangladesh talked to the Secretary of State, or maybe even to the President of the United States, and they institute this policy. And so we'll deal with the tyrants. We'll help you deal with the tyrants. We'll give you this policy to use as well. You know?
Well, one thing I know, sometimes Americans are taking the wrong side. I agree with you, but this time I think America took the right side, because it's the Bangladeshi government, those who are oppressing its own citizens. Bangladeshi government who was killing their own citizen to retain the power. It's the Bangladeshi government.
Okay, I get it then. Okay, so I misunderstood then. Okay, I misunderstood. Okay, so the American government took the right side. They're going against the oppressors. Okay, that's good then. So it's a good step in the right direction, but it needs to go a little further. You know, it should go a little further into sanctions. You know,
and another, I'm truly happy to have Senator Hira Monserrat with us. He just joined us. Welcome to the show, Senator.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I love the fact that Brother Eric Stevenson is here joining us today.
Yes, sir, brother.
He is the brother in many struggles. He is another person who supports freedom of association, freedom of speech, and participation, which I believe is what the American government did in this case by issuing the order that they did. No government is perfect. The United States is not perfect either. They have committed many injustices and quite frankly continue to do so right here, even locally in the city of New York, with different laws that they have used to oppress and keep people out. However, in the case of what the State Department has indicated in their report, it's very clear. That is that under no circumstances will anyone be given a visa to enter the United States that is improperly obstructed, restrained, or otherwise try to infringe upon the rights of the Bangladeshi people to not only vote, but to participate in elections. And the order went further and stated that anyone who's part of law enforcement, I'm also a former member of the NYPD and a former member of the Marine Corps here in the United States. So I'm very familiar with both the military and the police department. But in the issued by it's clear that anyone, whether you're military or police or law enforcement, if you use your power to benefit one party over the other, one group over the other, one candidate over the other, that will be deemed illegal in the eyes of the United States State Department, and they will not give you a visa to come to the United States under any circumstances, which, by the way, is a very severe measure and clearly the president administration under Joe Biden is very clear and very firm about their stance on this issue.
I'd like to go to Attorney Felicia Khadija. Felicia, I asked you if you can review State Department decision on visa sanction on Bangladesh, especially for the people who are obstructing free and fair election. Could you please share your views after reviewing that new law?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. Hello, brothers. How are you? So, Section 212 of the Immigration Nationality Act is a section where it's defined who is deemed inadmissible to the United States, people who are unable to get visas. There are certain restrictions, such as if you're going to be a public charge, for example, if you have committed torture, if you have committed genocide. There's an entire list. One of them is if an individual is seen to be against some foreign policy of the United States. So by issuing this new rule, the State Department is saying that their foreign policy is to support the fair elections in Bangladesh. So anyone who is seen to have disrupted that process will be denied visas to the United States. That's essentially the nature of this announcement. Although I would like to add something to what Brother Stevenson said, even though I think he may have been thinking about it in a different way when he first started talking, I think that it's still true. We have to be wary of, or ask at least, who is making this determination of individuals who are acting against the democratic process, because a lot of times what we see is that the law or the policy is facially neutral or facially positive and we support it, but then the facts on the ground are kind of contradicting that the spirit of the policy. So, for example, is the government of Bangladesh the one who is making the decision about who is interrupting the fair and free election process? If so, then it's going against the entire intention of the policy. We want to make sure that whoever is making those determinations are people who really have the best interests of the people in their minds, the people of Bangladesh. So is it a human rights organization? Is it the United States government? And if it is, that's also problematic because, of course, the U.S. government has its own interests, so they're going to choose individuals who are against their policy to say that those people are acting against democracy and maybe deny visas to them. So I think there's a whole range of issues that we have to consider when we talk about this.
Yeah, I think that's true. However, I want to make it clear, the State Department has a policy put forth. And obviously, they're going to be the judge. It will be the State Department that ultimately decides who comes in or not into their country. But the one thing that we're all clear about is what the intent is. Obviously, many times in government, we see that there are good intentions and then those intentions don't materialize. However, here, the State Department is clear what their intention is. Their intention is to deny visas for anyone who's improperly interfering in the election process. I think that the spirit of that policy is a good one. It says to all sides, whether you're on the left or the right, in the middle, up or down, you must respect everyone's opportunity to participate, even when you don't agree with them. I mean, here in the United States, we have elections, we have had riots, we have had insurrections, we have all of that. But at the end of the day, irrespective of our personal opinion, we must respect that everyone has a right to vote. Everyone has a right to participate. Brother Stevenson, everyone has the right to run for office.
Yes, sir.
We should not allow anything to infringe those rights here in the U.S. or abroad. So I want to give credit to the State Department for taking a firm stance against what could be improper activity. Now, obviously, we have to see what the end product is, what their determination process is, what type of due process measures they are implementing to ensure that this fairness occurs. But from the onset, the message is clear. And I think part of the messaging is to send the message to those who might be thinking about doing one thing or the other. And it says, think twice, because if we determine that you violated our policy, you will not be able to come, irrespective of your rank, your position in the military, your position in the Secret Service, police department, whatever the case is. The order is clear and it is strict and it is concise. The one thing I would say to everyone is, let everyone participate, and please, let's respect one another, even when we do not agree with them.
I'll ask you the same question to all three guests. Bangladesh government itself is a political party. They did not get elected by the people. They just rigged the vote, and then they declared themselves that they're the winner of the election in 2018. But how they got elected, how they rigged the vote? Do you know who went to the polling booth? It was police department. It was a paramilitary group called RAB. It was army. It was others. Went to the polling booth, throw the voters out of the polling booth, and they are the one who stamped on the ballot and shove it into the box. Now, American government says whoever is going to obstruct to free and fair election, they are not going to allow them to come to America. So all of the government officials, including police, including RAB, including civil administration, all are involved with those irregularities. What do you think if the chief of police or chief of army or chief of RAB, if they are saying that we would like to come to America to discuss those things, do you think America should allow them? But US Department's new visa policy says they're not going to allow them. What's going to happen to them if they like to come to America and talk to the US administration? Senator Hiram Monserrat, if you can explain.
Yeah, well, let me say this. I'm not privy to all the information about what occurred in the previous elections in Bangladesh. And clearly, anytime we hear about anything that's unethical or would tilt the favor, right? In other words, the government institutions are supposed to ensure fair elections. That is the role of government in elections. Here in America, we have the Democrats and the Republicans. The president is a Democrat. The Democratic Party controls the Senate. The Republicans control the Congress, the lower house. So we have checks and balances built into the system. However, when it is election time, no one should interfere with the process. Just protect the process and ensure fair participation. The minute you talk about using police or military soldiers to involve themselves in the process becomes greatly tainted, and if not, it could be easily seen, or at least from a bird's eye view, that there was some pressure or some stresses in the process. So we would ask that not occur again. Clearly, the State Department's policy is also stating to the Bangladeshi government and the people that we'll be watching, that the government of the United States will be watching to see what happens, and they will take action accordingly. And so for anyone who might be interested in obtaining a visa now or in the future, they should take heed, listen to the message, and the message is clear. Let's have a fair election and let the people decide. At the end of the day, we the people should decide, Jacob.
I agree.
And also, Jacob, I think if they want to come clean, then they should probably allow a group of international monitors to be placed in the country to observe and oversee these elections, and to make sure that they're fair and not corrupted, as mentioned.
I'll go to Attorney Khadija. In the past, when those irregularities took place, American government offered their assistance. They says, we are coming to observe your election and would like to investigate the irregularities. But at that time, Bangladesh government says, no, we are not gonna allow US government come inside and do the investigation. In regards to the vote rigging and enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killing, they did not allow it. Why they did not allow it? Because police were involved. army was involved, paramilitary was involved. Now, at this time, you raise a good question. Who is going to observe that? Who are the real culprit? Who is doing obstruction of free and fair election? So seems like US government, they are watching exactly who are the criminal. But what you think that US government should deal with the police and RAB through a different policy or under the same policy?
Do I think that they should deal with the police? And I'm actually not so familiar. So that is the intelligence is RAB. They should deal with them according to the policy. Of course, if they're asking the government for permission to come in and monitor their elections and the government is the one that's corrupt, of course they're going to say no. Nobody's, they're not going to want that monitoring because they know of what's going on. And, just to go back to what we were speaking about earlier about how the election takes place, is that we see this all over the place with dictatorships. For example, I remember during the election in Egypt, we saw flyers of Sisi and saying, oh, vote for Sisi. Oh, he got 99% of the votes. Well, who actually voted, right? Like no one. So it's really just a sham. And then when that happens and the person wins, then they can show the rest of the world, look, we had a democratic election and this person won. So the people support this person, right? So unless you know somebody on the ground or unless you're very well versed about that particular country or that particular situation, you're never going to know that what's really happening is corruption, violence, and oppression of the people. So, of course, the police, the military, the intelligence, anyone who's participating in this obstruction of the election should be treated according to the policy and denied visas. And, the State Department recognizes something very important, which is that an American visa, the ability to come to the United States or immigrate to the United States is something very valuable to people all over the world. A lot of people want to come here because they have an idea that, the U.S. is a great place to live. They don't know about all of the poverty and the oppression that we have here, but that's a story for another time, right? So they're recognizing that a visa is something that people really want, and that taking away the right to have that is something that would, like the senator said, it would make them double think their actions. So
I'll ask, there is another important example I'd like to bring. If Senator Monserrat and Brother Stevenson and Khadija, if you can address. 2 years ago, US government took a measure against the Panamanian government and the president at that time. His name was Ricardo Martinelli. He was involved in obstructing the free and fair election, and at the same time, he was really a corrupt guy, and his two sons was involved with these irregularities. So what US government did, they issued another sanction against Panamanian politician, and they banned the president and his two sons. Besides that rule, they also freeze all of the assets belongs to President Ricardo Martinelli of Panama and his two sons in the US. Do you think America can take the same measure against Bangladeshi head of the government and her son, daughter, and other people?
Well, through the history of Latin America recently, we see time and time again that there have been many people elected to president that really did not win their elections. That's where the term Banana Republic comes from. Banana Republic talks about governments that come and go, overthrown by their generals, or elections that are rigged by military personnel in favor of one party over the other. The United States has intervened on more than one occasion when it has blatantly seen that these types of elections occurred where people didn't win elections and suddenly became the winners and or declared themselves winners without the people's vote even being counted. We saw this in several of the Latin American countries here. And clearly, the United States has shown a propensity to take action when they see this type of vote rigging occurring. Now, in recent history, the United States has faced its own challenges, but none of those challenges have been near to what we have seen occurring in many of these nations. So again, if the United States can prevent a president from getting a visa to get here, you better believe they can prevent anyone else from getting a visa from ever coming here. And the issue of seizure or freezing assets is a tool that the United States has used time and time again. You know, whether we agree with it or not, they have the power to do it. They have done it, and clearly, there probably is a propensity to do it again.
I would go to Attorney Felicia. What do you think? Do you think America is going to take the same measure the way they took measure against Panamanian president and his two sons and their asset?
I don't see why they wouldn't if they're being consistent and sincere. Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Okay, I'll ask Assemblyman Brother Stevenson, what do you think? If America can take a measure against President of Panama and his two sons and their assets in America, do you think if Bangladeshi government is not going to correct themselves and keep doing whatever they are doing, do you think there is a possibility American government will take the same measure?
Well, just like the sister Khadija said, if they're sincere about it, and as long as you keep the pressure up and the results of what's going on over there, keep them informed about it. I don't know what watch group is doing reporting, so I don't know how they're going to be updating and kept updated to what's happening with this corruption or what's going on, and if it's proper information getting across. But it's a step in the right direction that's been taken. They committed to fair and free elections and supporting that. And let's see if they'll take a further step. I think if the corruption and violence is continually reported that this is going on, then I'm sure that the American government, if they're serious like they said, they would take further steps.
Yeah,
but some further action probably is going to be needed to happen because, Bangladesh, the government seems sometimes to be arrogant. It's like, okay, I don't care. We don't get a visa. We're going to still rule our country. We're still going to have unfair elections. But so it's going to be some further action needed to show that they're serious about it. And let's wait to see and hope for the best.
Senator Mansurat, this is one of the reasons I asked you this question. It's not only the incumbent Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Hasina Sheikh, her son, who happens to be a permanent resident of America, who doesn't have any profession, but he become billionaire. He is worth of $3 billion. He doesn't have any job, no business, nothing, but he just become billionaire. Now, this is the guy who play a vital role in Bangladesh, obstructing free and fair election, as well as the daughter of Prime Minister is called Putul, Saima Wajed Putul, and there is her sister, Rehana Sheikh. All of the people are involved with this irregularities. Now, we are talking about all those relatives of Prime Minister of Bangladesh. At the same time, a couple of years ago, Vice President of Costa Rica, they were doing the same thing. Incumbent Vice President of Costa Rica and President of Costa Rica, they had a similar ban. US government put a visa sanction that says we are going to freeze all of your assets. You cannot come to America. And then the children of the vice president, children of the president says, oh, we are not holding office. We are the just son or family member of the vice president. American government says no. What are you going to say to all those relatives of the prime minister and her political parties and allies, those who are getting frustrated and trying to get American visa and come to America?
Well, yeah, like again, the order is clear. If they can determine that anyone took improper actions or participated in an unlawful manner with the elections, then they can have their visas blocked and they won't be able. The issue of family members are along the same track. I wanted to just say that in Panama, it was actually two former presidents who had their visas blocked. One was Ricardo Martinelli and Juan Carlos Varela. And so these guys, both of them were presidents. They and their families were denied visas. And in essence, it made it very difficult for them to even leave the country, knowing that their travels were somewhat being monitored, right? Now, they had other issues also. not just elections, but you know, the cases are clear and the precedent has been set. And again, no one should improperly interfere with elections. Let the people vote. Let them participate. Don't intimidate people to vote one way or the other. It should be free will. And by the way, government works better when people believe that the government that exists was properly elected. There's always revolutions and fights when people begin to believe that their government doesn't represent them, because people resent that. Look, I have run for office, I've won, I've lost, but at the end of the day, what matters is the people determined in a fair election who's going to represent them. When the people lose that trust, that is when society begins to decline. When people do not believe or trust in the government that they supposedly elected. And that's what we're fighting here, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen in Bangladesh. So I'm going to have to leave soon.
Jacob.
But I want to thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to esteemed brother Eric Stevenson. Very happy to see you. To the attorney here, thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacob, I'm going to say one thing because I have to run now because it wasn't a scheduled time, but I'll be happy to come back another time. But good to see Hiram Montserrat, a very experienced man in government and politics and of the community. And I know he's up and running for an election, and the people, whoever's in the district where he is, should go out and support and re-elect him back into public office, because he's a man who stands up, who understands government, and will do the right thing for his community. Okay, and Jacob, we can talk back another time. And Sister Khadija, good to hear. Sister Wise won't hear what she said. She knows her issues.
Thank you so much, brother. We'll talk soon. We're gonna meet soon again.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Hi.
Okay, Khadija, you and me, we're gonna continue. One thing I'd like to ask you, Bangladeshi government. You are an attorney, because as a matter of fact, your word is $1 million, is value $1 million. I'll ask you this question: American judicial process, when Bangladeshi current government obstructing an election, the tools they are using, even Bangladeshi justice system, all of the judges are involved with this corruption. How sad it is. A country's entire judicial process goes against free and fair election. When those chief justice or any judges are going to deny American visa, don't you think American respect goes to the bottom of the basket? Or how Bangladesh can even continue this power-grabbing attitude for the future for 17 crore people?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the judiciary is going to be supportive of whatever the government actions are, and I don't know much about how the judges are appointed, but in the U.S., the Supreme Court judges are appointed by the president, the executive branch. So, presumably, all of their interests and their actions would be aligned with each other. So, if the policy is going to extend to the heads of the government, it should, of course, extend to the judges. Yes, it's sad, but if you have this kind of dictatorship or this authoritarian government, every aspect of it is going to be there's going to be issues with it. How can you have a fair judiciary when there's one person at the end of the day making all of the decisions and influencing that judiciary? So it should extend to them.
You gave a good example that, for example, Donald Trump or incumbent American president appoint the judges of the Supreme Court.
Right.
But same judges sometimes make a decision against the president who has appointed them.
Right.
In Bangladesh, the process is, if the prime minister is appointing a judge or a magistrate or someone, they are the one writing a decision and give it to the judge, says, read that decision while you are sitting down on the bench. That's the way they are creating a whole irregularities against the people's interest. Now, those are the people call themselves that I'm the chief judges. I'm making a fair decision when they are not fair. When this visa sanction took place, Anthony Blinken declared new visa policy for Bangladesh, they included judges, they included chief justice, they included police officers, they included journalists. Everyone is involved with these irregularities. A society, how they can prosper with all those people when those are the people should run the country in an effective manner? That's the situation Bangladesh is facing. Now, Bangladesh government is saying now, oh, those policy, US visa policy is not going to affect us. How silly it is. They're saying this visa policy is not for us. It's for the opposition. It's for the others. As an attorney, do you think they can claim that this policy is not for us?
They can try. I mean, and they will most likely. But it's true. If they included all of these individuals, specifically naming them in the order that was issued, then it's hard for them to deny. Although I guess they could come back and say that it's not applicable to all judges. It's only the ones who are corrupt, and then they decide which ones are corrupt themselves. I mean, that's also a concern. But there's always going to be a way around the plain language, right? They're always going to try to manipulate it. That's why, like we were saying earlier, we need human rights activists or organizations on the ground to really ensure that the policy is being carried out according to its intention and not being used as a weapon to continue to do more oppression, so.
I'm asking your opinion on that one. You and me, we will try to assess whatever it is. There is a conversation, ongoing conversation and negotiation are taking place behind the scene. Bangladeshi government is trying to communicate with the US ambassador in Bangladesh, and they are trying to convince them that current government, they are going to have free and fair election, but America says it's not going to happen because Bangladeshi people, 17 crore people, lost faith in the government, and they are trying to still stay in power. So in this situation, if I say that under this new visa policy, if anyone and everyone goes against democratically free and fair election, they will be banned to enter USA, and their asset will be freezed in America if America decide. Do you think I can say it in a fair mind?
Yeah, if I understand your question, I think you're speaking about the way that it's being interpreted to the people,
yes.
Or maybe it's being misconstrued if the people don't speak English or
Yes.
they don't have access to a proper translation. I don't think the order was issued in Bangla as well, which it should have been. Because then, the regular everyday people are relying on the media to explain things to them. And it's the same way here. The media is owned by the corporations and by the government themselves. So if the government is telling the media how to interpret the law, and then the media is going on to speak to the people, then the people are going to have a misunderstanding of what's actually allowed, and maybe they think that the U.S. is in support of the dictatorship, or they are not trying, or at least saying that they're acting in their best interest. So we need to make sure that it's reliably being transmitted to the people so that they understand what exactly is being allowed or disallowed.
Felicia, what the current government is doing now, they hire people from the media, and they hire professionals, go to the television talk show and misinterpret the US visa policy in their language. So they are saying that this visa is not applicable, this restriction is not applicable for us. We are just good. Those visa policy is applicable for the leader of the opposition. They are explaining in a way that American policy goes in their favor. Whereas America's intention of that visa restriction for the incumbent government to have free and fair election.
Right.
But
if they're the ones interpreting it, they're not going to make it seem that way if it went against their interests, of course.
Yeah, and while Bangladeshi, another thing is, when US government issued that visa restriction, now they are talking about China, they're talking about Egypt, they're talking about some other countries, while they should concentrate into their own country, that what are they doing? they're making a comparison. Oh, how come American government made a policy when there is no free and fair election in China? Don't make any sense. China is China, Bangladesh is Bangladesh.
Yeah, that's called whataboutism.
Yeah.
Bringing up other, I mean, it's a fair point, to be fair. Why are we sanctioning one and not another? Of course, that comes down to whatever the U.S. interest is, but that still doesn't address this policy and why it's being enacted at this time. So,
We are almost end of our time. I will ask you a final question. For the last 15 years, Bangladesh government under Hasina Sheikh and all of her criminal cronies funneled and laundered millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. They send it to America illegally. It is called money laundering. Now, as soon Anthony Blinken issued that visa restriction, now all those criminals start sending money from America to Bangladesh again. Because they realize that if they cannot come to America, so their asset and money will get stuck in America. So they are taking their money back to Bangladesh. So at this time, I wish US government do something to hold all those monies so that they cannot funnel back to Bangladesh. Well, that is the dilemma we are facing. Felicia, in the future, you and me, we're going to talk more on the television program. And thank you very much that you came to the show and speak to us.
I'm happy to be here. Nice to talk to you. And yeah, inshallah, I'll be on again.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye. Assalamualaikum.
দর্শকবৃন্দ, কয়েকটা সাবজেক্ট আমি এখন বাংলায় ব্যাখ্যা করতে চাচ্ছি। আমি কয়েকটা সাবজেক্ট ওদের সাথে প্রশ্ন করেছি যে প্রশ্নগুলো এমন ছিল। হাসিনা শেখ এবং তার যে চোর ছেচর যত গুন্ডা পান্ডারা আছে, ইনক্লুডিং তার এমপি মন্ত্রী, তারা বিভিন্নভাবে এই ভিসা পলিসিটাকে ব্যাখ্যা করার চেষ্টা করে। তারা সাংবাদিক হায়ার করে, তারা পুরানো জাজ হায়ার করে, এমপি হায়ার করে, মন্ত্রী হায়ার করে, এসে তাদের মতো করে এই লটাকে ইন্টারপ্রেট করে। আমি আপনাদেরকে একটা কথা বলি, সে কথাটা হচ্ছে এই, সিমিলার রেস্ট্রিকশন আমেরিকা ইম্পোজ করেছিল পানামার উপরে, সিমিলার রেস্ট্রিকশন তারা ইম্পোজ করেছে কোস্টারিকার উপরে, নাইজেরিয়ার উপরে, অন্যান্য দেশের উপরে। আপনাদেরকে আমি বলি, এই রেস্ট্রিকশনের পরে যেই সব কান্ট্রির লিডাররা তারা আগের মতো করে ইরেগুলারিটি চালিয়ে যাচ্ছিল, তাদের প্রেসিডেন্টের উপরে রেস্ট্রিকশন দিয়েছে, ওই প্রেসিডেন্টকে আর অ্যালাউ করেন আমেরিকা ঢোকার জন্য। পানামার 2 জন প্রেসিডেন্টকে আমেরিকা ঢুকতে দেয় না, পানামার ওই প্রেসিডেন্টের আত্মীয় স্বজনদেরকে আমেরিকায় ঢুকতে দেয় না, কোস্টারিকার প্রেসিডেন্ট ভাইস প্রেসিডেন্ট তাদেরকে আমেরিকায় ঢুকতে দেয় না, তাদের অ্যাসেট যত লোকজনদেরকে আমেরিকায় ঢুকতে দেয় না তাদের সবার অ্যাসেট আমেরিকা ফ্রিজ করেছে। এবং পাশাপাশি আরেকটা কাজ করেছে, সেটা হচ্ছে র্যাব, পুলিশ, বিজিবি বা যারাই আছে এই রেস্ট্রিকশনের আওতায় আসবে, ইনক্লুডিং জাজেস, ইনক্লুডিং সাংবাদিক, আপনারা কেউ এই রেস্ট্রিকশন থেকে পার পাবেন না। আপনাদেরকে যদি অন্যভাবে ব্যাখ্যাও করা হয়, আমি আপনাদেরকে বলছি আপনারা পার পাবেন না। আপনারা আমেরিকা ঢুকতে পারবেন না, আজকের আমেরিকা ঢুকতে পারবেন না, কালকের ইউরোপেও ঢুকতে পারবেন না, কানাডায় ঢুকতে পারবেন না। দ্যাটস অল। অন দ্য আদার হ্যান্ড, আপনাদেরকে আমি আরো কয়েকটা সাবজেক্ট নিয়ে আপনাদেরকে অ্যাওয়্যার করছি। বিরোধী দল বলতে এখন টক শোতে যেসব লোকজনরা নির্লজ্জের মতো বিএনপি, জামাত ইসলামী, জঙ্গি এদের কথা বলে, এই ভিসা রেস্ট্রিকশনের ভিতরে বিরোধী দল বলতে তাদেরকে বলা হয়েছে যারা এই মুহূর্তে বর্তমান গভর্নমেন্টের সহায়ক। এই গভর্নমেন্টের সহায়ক কারা? জাতীয় পার্টি। এই গভর্নমেন্টের সহায়ক কারা? জাসদ নামধারী কুকুর শ্রেণী, ইনু, পতিতা বকুল, শিরিন বকুল, আরো যারা যারা আছে এরা। এই বিরোধী দল বলতে আর তারা কারে মিন করছে? আজকে রাশেদ খান মেনন আর ইনুরে মন্ত্রিত্ব দেয় না দেখে তারা এখন অন্যদিকে দোতারা বাজাইতেছে। এরা ভালো মানুষ না, এরা ভালো রাজনীতিবিদ না, এরা সুযোগবাদী। এদেরকে বিশ্বাস করার কোনো কারণ নাই, এবং আমেরিকা এদেরকে যদি পায় এদেরকে আটকাবে। আরেকটা কথা, অনেকেই আপনারা বলে থাকেন যে আমেরিকায় অনেকের গ্রিন কার্ড আছে, অনেক পুলিশ অফিসিয়াল তাদের ছেলে পানদের, আর্মি অফিসিয়াল তাদের ছেলে পানদের, এমপি, মন্ত্রী, সাংবাদিক, এদের যত আমেরিকায় তাদের এক্সিস্টিং ভিসা আছে, ভিসাগুলো অলরেডি ক্যান্সেল করা হয়েছে, হবে, এগুলো এক্সিকিউট শুরু হয়েছে। এগুলো যখন এক্সিকিউট করবে এরা আর আমেরিকা আসবে না। আপনারা জেনে থাকবেন যে বাংলাদেশের গত ভিসা নিউ ভিসা পলিসির সাথে সাথে বাংলাদেশে আমেরিকা থেকে অনেক টাকা অনেক ডলার বাংলাদেশে যাচ্ছে। এই মুহূর্তে বাংলাদেশ গভর্নমেন্টের উচিত, আমি জানি এই গভর্নমেন্ট এগুলো করবে না কারণ সব চোর শাসররা গভর্নমেন্টেরই সহায়ক, কিন্তু গভর্নমেন্টের যদি শুভ বুদ্ধির উদয় হয় কি করা উচিত, এখন যত কারেন্সি বাংলাদেশে যাচ্ছে সব কারেন্সি গুলো হোল্ড করা উচিত, কারণ এগুলো সব ব্ল্যাক মানি। এগুলোকে হাসিনা করবে? অফকোর্স করবে না, কারণ হাসিনাই এদেরকে হেল্প করেছে টাকাগুলো লন্ডারিং করার জন্য। বাট হাসিনার জন্য খুব খারাপ সময়। কেন খারাপ সময়? যদি পানামার 2 প্রেসিডেন্টের উপরে রেস্ট্রিকশন আসে, তার 2 ছেলের উপরে রেস্ট্রিকশন আসে, কোস্টারিকার প্রেসিডেন্টের উপরে রেস্ট্রিকশন আসে, নাইজেরিয়া প্রেসিডেন্টের উপরে রেস্ট্রিকশন আসে, হাসিনা শেখ আপনিও পার পাবেন না। আমি জানি আপনার মাথা খারাপ হয়ে গেছে, আপনার বকরা ছেলে বকরা মেয়ে পুতুল রানী সাহা আর সজীব আহমেদ ওয়াজেদ এবং রেহানা শেখ এবং তার ঘোড়ামুখ ভাস্তি টিউলিপ সিদ্দিক, এদের উপরে রেস্ট্রিকশন ইজ জাস্ট এ ম্যাটার অফ টাইম। তাদের অ্যাসেট কি এখানে ফ্রিজ হতে পারে? 110%। আমেরিকা এসব ক্ষেত্রে খুব ভালো। উই আর লিভিং ইন এ ক্যাপিটালিস্ট সোসাইটি। আপনার সম্পদের উপরে আমেরিকা যদি সুযোগ পায় একটা রেস্ট্রিকশন দেওয়ার, দে আর গোনা ডু ইট অ্যাজ কুইক অ্যাজ পসিবল। তাহলে এখন কি হতে পারে? বাংলাদেশের র্যাব, পুলিশ, সাংবাদিক, জাজেস, আপনাদেরকে একটা কথা আমি বলে রাখি, আমরা জানি যে আপনারা সাক্ষাৎ শয়তান এবং আপনারা সাক্ষাৎ শয়তান হাসিনার অনুসারী। আপনাদেরকে এই কথাটা বলে রাখি, এইসব কথাবার্তা বাদ দেন যে ওকে বাংলাদেশের উপরে আমেরিকা কেন এ ধরনের আচরণ করলো, চাইনিজের উপরে কেন করতেছে না, অন্য কান্ট্রির উপরে কেন করতেছে না, বিদেশের কথা বাদ দেন। আপনাদেরকে একটা কথা বলি, শেষ বিচারের দিন আল্লাহর সামনে যখন দাঁড়াই আপনাকে শেষ বিচার করবে, আপনাকে জাহান্নামে পাঠাবে আর একজনকে জান্নাতে পাঠাবে, আপনি কি আল্লাহকে বলবেন যে আল্লাহ ও তো আমার লগে চুরি করছে, ও জান্নাতে যাইতেছে কেন, আমি জাহান্নামে যাই কেন? এটা বলতে পারবেন না। এখন আপনি বলবেন আমেরিকা কি আল্লাহর সাথে আমি তুলনা করছি? আস্তাগফিরুল্লাহ, আমি তা তুলনা করছি না। আমেরিকা তাদের ফরেন পলিসি অ্যাডপ্ট করে তাদের জাতীয় স্বার্থের জন্য। জাতীয় স্বার্থের জন্য যখন বাংলাদেশের উপরে স্যাংশন দেয়, বাংলাদেশ একটা এন্টিটি, চায়না একটা এন্টিটি, নাইজেরিয়া একটা এন্টিটি, পানামা একটা এন্টিটি, আমেরিকান গভর্নমেন্ট তাদের বিশ্বের প্রত্যেকটা গভর্নমেন্টের উপরে ডিফারেন্ট ফরেন পলিসি তারা অ্যাডপ্ট করে। এখন যেই পলিসি তারা পানামার জন্য করে, ওই পলিসি পানামার জন্যই প্রযোজ্য, ওই পলিসিটা বাংলাদেশের জন্য প্রযোজ্য না। সো বাংলাদেশের যেসব ঘুঘু সাংবাদিক, ঘুঘু জাজেস, ঘুঘু পুলিশ আফসার কইতেছে চায়না হয় না, তাহলে আমাদের হবে কেন, এ ধরনের কথাবার্তা বাদ দেন। আপনারা নির্লজ্জার মতো, বেহায়ার মতো এ ধরনের ইন্টারপ্রেট টেলিভিশন স্ক্রিনে এসে করেন। আর বাংলাদেশে বসে আমি দেখি সাংবাদিক, জাজেস, গরু, ছাগল সবাই এসে এটা নিয়ে আপনারা কথাবার্তা বলেন। আপনারা এই কথাবার্তা বলার মতো পজিশনে কি আপনারা আছেন? আপনাদের কি কোনো অভিজ্ঞতা আছে? আপনারা বলবেন আমি বাংলাদেশে সিনিয়র উকিল, সো হোয়াট? আমেরিকান একটা লকে যদি ইন্টারপ্রেট করতে যান, আপনি আমেরিকান কোর্টে এসে কোনোদিন প্র্যাকটিস করেছেন? আমেরিকান কোর্টে জুডিশিয়াল প্রসেসের ভিতরে একটা মোশন প্র্যাকটিস থাকে, একটা ল এক্সিকিউশনের ব্যাপারে ডিফারেন্ট একটা পলিসি থাকে, এগুলো সম্পর্কে আপনারা জানেন না, অথচ আপনারা কথাবার্তা বলতেছেন ওখানে বসে। এমন অনেক সাবজেক্ট আছে যেগুলো ব্যাখ্যা করতে গেলে আমেরিকান জুডিশিয়াল প্রসেসের সাথে আপনাদের সরাসরি ইনভলভ থাকতে হবে, আপনারা না। আরেকটা কথা শুনতে ভালোই লাগে, বাংলাদেশে হাসিনার পাচাটা একটা কুত্তার বাচ্চা সাংবাদিক আছে, নাইমুল ইসলাম খান, এই শুয়োরের বাচ্চা 2 দিন আগে হাসিনার কোলে চড়ে আমেরিকা এসে ঘুরে গেছে, আর 2 দিন আগে টেলিভিশন স্ক্রিনে গিয়ে বলে আমেরিকানের ভিসা স্যাংশনের জন্য আমি খুব লজ্জা পাচ্ছি। শুয়োরের বাচ্চা, তো লজ্জা কই? লজ্জা বলতে কোনো জিনিস তোর মধ্যে আছে? তোর মতো এইসব কুত্তার বাচ্চা সাংবাদিকরাই তো হাসিনা শেখকে এই পর্যায়ে নিয়ে এসছে। নুয়ু সিংহ, এই শুয়ারের বাচ্চা এক সিংহ আছে, এই গাধার বাচ্চারা দেখি 2 দিন আগে ওই ভিসা স্যাংশনের উপর এসে ব্যাগ 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 কইরা কচ্ছপের মতো কেউ কেউ করতেছে, গলা টানা দিতেছে, ওরে ধৈর্য করে ঠেটাই 2টা লাথি দেন না কেন? বাংলাদেশি ভাই বোনেরা, এই সাবজেক্টের উপরে আমরা আরেকবার কথা বলবো এবং এটাই হবে শেষবারের মতো এই শনিবারে স্ট্রিট টক উইথ জেকব মিল্টন অন নাগরিক টিভি। আমি আরেকজন অ্যাপ্রনিকে ইনভাইট করেছি, আমি আর সেটা নিয়ে কথা বলবো এই শনিবার। কিন্তু এই মুহূর্তে আমি আপনাদের দৃষ্টি আকর্ষণ করে কয়েকটা কথা বলবো। সাংবাদিক, এই নাইমুল ইসলাম খানের মতো সাংবাদিক, নঈম নিজামের মতো আনপঢ় সাংবাদিক, আপনারা কেউ যদি লজ্জা পেয়ে থাকেন আর বলেন যে এই ভিসাটা, এই ভিসা পলিসিটা, এই ভিসা স্যাংশনটা আমাদের জন্য অত্যন্ত লজ্জাজনক, তাহলে লজ্জাজনক হলে সত্য কথাগুলো বলা শুরু করুন। সত্য কথাগুলো বলা শুরু করুন। দিস দ্য টাইম। আর্মি, নেভি, এয়ারফোর্স এবং সশস্ত্র বাহিনী আপনাদের উদ্দেশ্যে বলছি, দিস ইজ দ্য টাইম, ইউ মাস্ট অ্যাক্ট। আপনাদের রয়্যাল লোকজনরা অফিস খুলে বসে রয়েছে, তাদের পাশার মধ্যে পিস্তল ঠেকায় গুলি করে দেন। এদেরকে বাংলাদেশে থাকার কোনো জায়গা নাই, এরা বাংলাদেশে আছে অবৈধভাবে, এদেরকে রেখেন না আপনার পাশে। আর আরেকটা কথা, পৃথিবীর যে কোনো দেশে বিপ্লব হয়েছে একেবারে সিনিয়র লেভেল থেকে হয় না, জুনিয়র লেভেল থেকেও হয়েছে। আপনারা কি করছেন এখনো বসে বসে? ওই বিদেশে শান্তিরক্ষী মিশনে গিয়ে $2 কামাবেন, ওটার উপর স্যাংশন আসতেছে খুব ইমিডিয়েটলি। হাসিনা গভর্নমেন্ট এবার যদি পদত্যাগ না করে, ফ্রি অ্যান্ড ফেয়ার ইলেকশন না দেয়, বাংলাদেশ সেনাবাহিনী আর শান্তিরক্ষী মিশনে যাবে না। ওই পয়সা কামানোর কথা বাদ দেন, কেউ একজন ঘুরে দাঁড়াতে হবে, দাঁড়ায়া যান। আপনি যে ফিডেল ক্যাস্ট্রো হবেন না, আপনি যে মেজর জিয়া হবেন না, আপনি যে অন্য কেউ হবেন না, এটা আপনি জানেন না। একটা ট্রাই করে দেখেন, এই মুহূর্তে সুযোগ। পুলিশ, র্যাব, বিজিবি, আপনারা যারা আছেন আপনাদের সবার উচিত অসাংবিধানিক কোনো আদেশ যদি আপনার সুপিরিয়ররা দেয়, সেই আদেশ আপনারা পালন করবেন না। কারণ ওই আদেশ যদি আপনারা পালন করতে যান, আমেরিকা আপনি ঢুকতে পারবেন না, আমেরিকা আপনার ছেলেপানরা ঢুকতে পারবে না, আমেরিকা আপনার ভাই বোনরা ঢুকতে পারবে না। পাশাপাশি আপনি যদি অসুস্থ হন, চিকিৎসার জন্য আপনি আমেরিকা আসতে পারবেন না। আপনি যদি কোনো অবস্থাতে ছেলেপানদের, নাতিদের আমেরিকা লেখাপড়া করাইতে চান, তারা এই ভিসা রেস্ট্রিকশনের আওতায় চলে আসবে। আপনাদেরকে একটা কথা বলে আমি শেষ করছি। পানামার প্রেসিডেন্ট রিকার্ডো মার্টিনেলির ওটাকে কি বলে, গ্র্যান্ড চিলড্রেন, তারা ফ্লোরিডায় থাকতো। রিকার্ডো মার্টিনেলির নাতিরা ফ্লোরিডায় থাকতো, ফ্লোরিডায় লেখাপড়া করতো। এই ভিসা স্যাংশন ইস্যু করার 1.5 মাসের মাথায় তাদেরকে গাট্টি বস্তা বাইন্দা পানামায় পাঠিয়ে দিছে। এবং যখন পাঠাইছে, তাদের ছেলেপানরা এইখান থেকে কিছু জিনিসপত্র নিয়ে যাওয়া ধরছে, লাইক ল্যাপটপ এন্ড আদার কম্পিউটার, এয়ারপোর্টে সব সিজ করে রেখে দিছে। সো এবার আপনাদের যত চোর ছাসররা আছেন বাংলাদেশে, ভালো হন, একটু বাংলাদেশ প্রেমী হন, ধীরে ধীরে গভর্নমেন্টের বিরোধিতা করা শুরু করেন। লিস্টে যদি আপনার নামও থাকে, চেষ্টা করেন ভালো কাজ দিয়ে আবার আপনার ভালো নামটাকে, নিজেকে উদ্ধার করতে, এবং ভালো কাজগুলো করুন। আমেরিকা এবং ইউরোপে আপনাদের ফিউচার অন্ধকার যদি এই গভর্নমেন্টের বিরুদ্ধে এই মুহূর্তে আপনারা কিছু না করেন। বাংলাদেশি ভাই বোনেরা, এর চেয়ে ডিরেক্ট আর কোনো কথা আমি আপনাদেরকে বলতে পারি না। ঠিক আছে, হাসিনা গভর্নমেন্টকে তার এই বকরাপোলা সজীব আহমেদ ওয়াজেদকে, সাইমা ওয়াজেদ পুতুলকে, রেহানা শেখ এবং ঘোড়ামুখ টিউলিপকে মাফ করবে কি করবে না, এটা সময় বলবে। কিন্তু বানরমুখ কামাল, পতিতা আরাফাত এবং আরেক পতিতার দালাল আইনমন্ত্রী আনিসুল হক যে কুকুরছানা বলেছে ডিজিটাল অ্যাক্ট নাকি সাংবাদিকদের কাছে করা হয় না, অথচ 3/4 of the entire cases of Digital Security Act been filed against journalists. এই ইডিয়টের বাচ্চা বলছে সাংবাদিকদের জন্য এই আইন করা হয় না। এনিওয়ে, আজকের আপনাদের সাথে আমি যে বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে কথা বললাম, আমি শনিবার দিন চেষ্টা করব আরো কিছু সম্পূরক কথাবার্তা নিয়ে আপনাদের সাথে কথা বলার জন্য। আমার জন্য দোয়া করবেন এবং আপনারা সবাই ভালো থাকবেন। অ্যাগেন, সর্বশেষে একটা কথা বলবো, যে কোনো মূল্যে বাংলাদেশের সার্বভৌমত্ব এবং অস্তিত্ব আমাদেরকে রক্ষা করতে হবে। কোন দল আমার দেশ বাংলাদেশের চেয়ে বড় না, কোন দলের নেতা বা নেত্রী আমার মাতৃভূমি বাংলাদেশের চেয়ে বড় না। সর্বাগ্রে আমার দেশ থাকলে আমি থাকবো। 17 কোটি মানুষ বাংলাদেশ যদি টিকে থাকে, তাইলে আমরা এই বাংলাদেশের জন্য বাঁচবো, মরবো, হাসবো, কান্না করব এবং সুখে থাকবো আমাদের ওই সার্বভৌম বাংলাদেশকে নিয়ে। সবাই ভালো থাকুন। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।